Survivor 46 is here, and so is On Fire, the only official Survivor podcast, and we have a twist this season. The winner of Survivor 45, Dee Valladares, will be joining us every week.
We're going behind the scenes of the biggest moments, the how and the why things happen, and the strategy and analysis you can only get from someone like me, a Survivor winner.
Listen to On Fire, the official Survivor podcast, wherever you get your podcast.
With threats to our nation waiting around every corner, adaptability is more important than ever. When conditions change without notice, quick strategic thinking is crucial. And with obstacles consistently impending, determination is essential in overcoming them. It's this willingness, decisiveness, and resilience that sets Marines apart. With our fighting spirit, we don't just fight battles, we win them. Marines are the constant our nation counts on to fight the unknown. And through adaptable problem solving, we do just that. Learn more at marines.com.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
The Tokyo Olympics and Paralympics, Beijing Winter Olympics and Paralympics, the Commonwealth Games, the European Championships. Multi-sport fans like us have been spoilt for the past year, and with many World Championships also happening this season across multiple sports, it's been a spectator's dream. But what about for the athletes? I'm John.
And I'm Michael, and this is Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic podcast. And in this episode, we review the second staging of the European Championships, this time being staged in Munich, days after the curtain came down on a brilliant Birmingham Commonwealth Games. And we'll be asking this question: is it a Games too far, on and off the field of play?
We'll say goodbye to an Olympic legend, ending on a high. And Birmingham's been and gone, as Michael said, but the Commonwealth Games were declared as the best ever in the hardest of circumstances. We'll review what is next for Birmingham as a city.
And of course, we'll run through some of the other non-footy stories you may have missed in the past few weeks, and you can always get in touch anytime. Find us on Twitter at AnythingButF, message us via Instagram or on Facebook. Go and check out our shiny new website, anythingbutfooty.com. You can send us a message through there, or drop us an email, anythingbutfooty@gmail.com.
Now, Germany staged the athletics for the second time at these European Championships, the first multi-sport event which brings together lots of different Euro champs in one city. Was staged in Glasgow, of course, in 2018. But the athletics was then in Berlin. It's quite complicated, as I'm sure you will agree, but many defending champions are back to see if they could retain their titles 4 years on. And Britain won both the men's and women's 100 metres in Berlin, but it wasn't quite to be this time for Dina Smith and Zarnell Hughes for very different reasons. Michael, what did you make of firstly the overall championships, the athletics being in Munich, and I think they're doing an amazing job. The stadium looks incredible, but then the sprint performances particularly, before we review some of the other races?
Yeah, I think I like the idea of the multi-sport European Championships. I've always thought, actually, it was a really good idea to bring sports together, like athletics, like swimming, like triathlon. Remember, obviously, in Glasgow, they had golf in as part of it. We've got sport climbing this time around. I just don't think the execution of it has come together quite right, because, as you said there, we had sort of Glasgow and then the offshoot of the track and field in Berlin, and I think that then impacted on the enjoyment of the Glasgow end of the games last time. And now this time, especially from a British point of view, where we're seeing so much aquatic success at the moment, you've got Rome hosting swimming and diving and the other aquatic pursuits, whilst then you've got Munich that seems, from what I can see on the television pictures and speaking to people I know that are there, seem to be hosting a really, really good event. I think some of the staging of the athletics, definitely shades of Doha 2019 with the light show and everything like that's going on. They've got that great park, some iconic venues, but I think just not having it all together just detracts from it a little bit, and it just makes it a little bit difficult to follow at times. And I'm thinking about for the broadcasters here, because I know the BBC are doing it from Salford, and that's probably a cost decision, but they're kind of having to go back and forward between what's going on in Rome, what's going on in Munich, and they're not quite getting it right. And when you consider that that's the way most people are consuming these championships, it just hasn't quite come together as I think it could, in the same way that an Olympic Games and a Commonwealth Games does, when one region, one city hosts, 95% of the events.
Yeah, and we've seen rowing, which we'll talk about, and cycling as well. And these events have been shown, and they look great, and some great performances once again from the British stars. But as you say, it hasn't quite. It's just confusing. I don't think people have quite got it, and I'm not sure, as you say, the broadcasters have quite put it over in the right way as well. Talking of not quite getting it right, Dina Asher-Smith and Zarnell Hughes. Firstly, Dina, she's not really fit, is she? I don't think.
No, there's obviously clearly been an issue all this year, and I think her semi-final time in Oregon probably disguised what's obviously a bigger problem. Now, whether this is still the same sort of problem that troubled her in Tokyo at the delayed Olympics, where we know that she was struggling a little bit, and I've spoken to her 2 or 3 times since then, and she's told me every time, no, that injury's behind her, she's fine. But she wasn't fine at the British Championships. Nope. She wasn't herself there. We know that Daryll Nita won that. She obviously clearly, wasn't fine to go to Birmingham after the World Championships, where, again, she had some issues, and it's been a tight hamstring issue. It's been a cramp issue. Yeah. I mean, this was a huge season where perhaps, she could have, had she been fit, she could have eclipsed what she did in 2019, but it just hasn't happened for Dina Asher-Smith. And in her absence, I think we have to say congratulations to Daryll Nita, who has turned up to the 3 championships, didn't reach the final, I know that, in Oregon, but then has medals now at the Commonwealth Games and at the European Championships as well. So, yeah, it's a struggle for me with Dina Asher-Smith, and I just can't quite put my finger on what's wrong at the minute. But something doesn't seem right, does it?
It doesn't, and it may be the crazy packed schedule that this summer season has brought, and I listed all of those things. You think the last 12 months, you mentioned Tokyo, it's such a hard thing to shake an injury off, isn't it? She was obviously really affected in Tokyo, and it's such a hard thing to then go into a winter where you're then preparing for 3 major championships. So it is a bit crazy in those ones. I thought also from Daryll's point of view, it was a missed opportunity in the Europeans. I slightly thought that in the Commonwealth Games as well, but with the Jamaicans there, you can never sort of say, well, it's a dead cert that we're going to win. But it felt like the Europeans, the German won a gold medal in the women's 100 metres, and that is an amazing night in Munich, as we saw, but not what we would usually expect, although she was a silver medalist 4 years ago behind Dina Asher-Smith. So I just felt with Daryll there was another opportunity, and she mentioned cramp as well in that interview, and I thought that interview that they did afterwards, Michael, was very different. I didn't really believe Dina, and I'm not saying that she's lying, but I didn't, because you've spoken to her so many times, and she said this thing before. She said it when she pulled out of the relay in Oregon. Oh, I'm fine, don't worry about it. And then obviously she pulled out of the Commonwealth Games. So to come out after the race and say, I'm absolutely fine, but I don't know why I've got cramp, I don't get that. And I think you have to look at what's going on there behind the scenes. But then Daryll to mention cramp as well, but she was totally different. She was like, look, I'm not making an excuse here. I really did suffer, and I wonder whether that is the end, as you say, of 3 major championships in a row within 5 weeks.
Yeah, and I would say about Daryll Nita, if these championships had perhaps been reversed, if we'd maybe had the Europeans first, then she might have been looking at a different place on the podium. Obviously, as you say, she lost to a German who hasn't been in the Commonwealth Games running relays and individuals a couple of weeks ago. So I think the season is probably taking its toll on these athletes, and I think that's physically and perhaps mentally as well, and I think sometimes stress reactions mentally can have an impact physically. So, when you are maybe struggling a little bit in body and mind, that can manifest itself in something like cramp or, tightness of muscle. So I just wonder whether the mental side of this long season and these 3 big championships so close together has maybe had an impact on some of our leading names as well.
And I think Daryll said it to you when you spoke to her in Birmingham, and also Asher Phillips said it to us in a podcast we made for the British Athletes Commission. We're not machines.
No,
these are human beings. They have to go and perform, and they can't just magic it just like that all the time, despite our expectations. And I'll hold my hands up and say I did expect Daryll Nita to do more than what she did. But as you say, brilliant, the fact that she got those medals in the Europeans and Commonwealths more than others had. I thought Zarnell's silver was actually under 10 seconds as well. Pretty impressive. He was the defending champion, as I mentioned earlier, in the men's 100
lost to an Olympic champion, though.
Exactly, and that's the difference. The Italian Jacobs came back for that. He wasn't himself in Oregon. He'd won the World Indoors earlier this year with an amazing performance over 60 metres. So it was very different for Zarnell, and actually he was miles ahead of the rest of the men's 100 metres. But brilliant for Jeremiah Azu, who we saw from Wales for Commonwealth Games. He got his first medal, and the celebration behind that was absolutely brilliant. So I think that was a positive 100 metres. Well, the women's was slightly a bit like, we're not really sure what's going on here. But we talk about 3 major championships. That, one of the toughest distances, Michael, that we've talked about in athletics, and we know this from our various interviews with Christine Harugu over the years, is the 400 metres. Well, cometh the hour, or cometh the 3 in 5 weeks, cometh Matthew Hudson-Smith, the gold medalist at last.
Yeah, and he's got a bronze, a silver and a gold from this season. And it's interesting. I go back to, I think, when we chatted at the Diamond League event in Birmingham earlier on in the season, and I said to Matthew Hudson-Smith, because he'd kind of come through 7 years ago now, and he said, he had all that raw talent, but he didn't know how to run.
Yeah.
And he said, I've gone away, gone to America. I've had some, he's had some horrendous times. And I talk about, the mental toll that things have been taken. Read the story from Matthew Hudson-Smith over the past few years. But, he said he learned how to run, and he was now a different athlete, a more mature athlete. And that's what we were going to see this season. And then he completely threw that out the window in Birmingham, didn't he? Because he completely got that race plan wrong. He went out too hard in the end, and paid the penalty and ended up not getting that gold medal. I think he was absolutely spot on in what he did in Germany, and I think if you watch that, you can see the athlete in the lane outside of him really motoring hard, and Matthew Hudson-Smith looks quite languid in comparison in that first 150, 200 metres, and then you see what happens. He motors through round the bend. The athlete who was flying early on and really, working hard ended up finishing 4th. Matthew Hudson-Smith just stretched away and won that gold medal. He is the European champion.
Absolutely brilliant performance. So pleased for him. And he's now actually got a relay to run as well, because for the first time in a number of years, we've got a men's 4x4 going in the Europeans. So good luck for that. Ailish McColgan is just a machine. We talk about machines, but this is a different kind of machine.
Do you know what I love about Ailish McColgan? She races. Yeah. She's always racing. She's there at every meet, every championship we attend.
Because she's going, as we'll hear later, she's going to the Big Half in London next month before the London Marathon in October.
She said when I spoke to her in Birmingham that this was her last season on the track, and obviously a gold and a silver in Birmingham. Now she's gone to the Europeans, but I often just, and I'm not an expert, I'm not a coach, I'm not an elite athlete, I'm an observer. But I don't understand athletes, or when athletes say, I'm not going to race again, I'm not going to compete again this season. I know why, if you're injured, obviously you wouldn't go and do that. But I think we hear quite a lot where athletes go, no, I'm absolutely fine. I'm just not going to compete again this season because I just think that'll give me the better chance of being ready for next season. And I hear that quite a lot from some of our leading athletes. And I just think, look at Ailish McColgan. She's putting in 5Ks and 10Ks, seemingly week in, week out. And she's out there and she's competing and she's learning with every race. And I think that's what then propelled her to that gold medal in Birmingham at the Commonwealth Games. And she clearly just wants to be out there because you don't get a long time, you know, and you certainly as an elite athlete don't get many attempts at major championships, do you? So, you know, for people to, and there are one or two examples of people that have said sort of early part of this season, I'm not going to do the Commonwealth Games and the Europeans this year because my focus is all on Budapest and the Worlds next year. Well, who knows what's going to happen between now and then? You know, you could just be throwing a year of your career away. And you know, just going back to Dina Asher-Smith, she said she was fine, but then wasn't going to compete in Birmingham. Well, if she was fine, why wasn't she competing in Birmingham? She obviously wasn't fine, I don't think. But I just think if you are fine, it just seems bizarre to me to throw away opportunities to compete at major games and win medals. And that's what I love about Eilish McColgan. She's always there. She's always competing.
And how gutting was it for Jacob Fincham-Jukes, the long jumper that, frankly, no one had heard of, Gabby Logan included, who called him Jukes Fincham, and kind of laughed the fact that she knew that she'd got his name wrong. But so disappointing for him that he did a lap of honour, thought he'd won a silver medal, but then his jump, which he jumped, I think, the first round, was then ruled out because they said it was a foul. Now, it's either a foul or it's not. And I think Kelly Southerton has come out on Twitter and said, look, it was a foul, so it would have been wrong for him to have won it. And there is always an appeal process half an hour after the end of the event. So you can't say that this is wrong, but it's just so unfortunate. And you want these young people, you talked about the swimming earlier, we've got an amazing amount of young talent coming through in the swimming pool. And you want to see that. You want to see medals in these European championships for the likes of Jacob Fincham-Jukes, don't you?
Yeah, and actually I think I agreed with Kelly Southerton. Yeah. You know, we know what the rules are, and the rules are you've got half an hour to make that appeal.
But the officials shouldn't get it wrong. It's either a foul or it's not. Why you give it a not a foul and you carry on the whole competition? That, I think, is more of a question. Why it was allowed to be a mistake. I mean, you used to have plasticine, but they don't have that anymore.
No, it's a laser.
So
it's a laser that... Oh. It's athletics equivalent of VAR in a way, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, and you know, you look at VAR in football, and they take an enormous amount of time sometimes to get to the right decision. And I think they got to the right decision in this case, but yeah, it takes away from his moment. It takes away from the spectacle. Are we going to get to that point like we do in football where, you know, players don't know whether to celebrate yet until the computer has said yes? Yeah. You know, do you not have the medal ceremony and the lap of honour until the 30 minutes has elapsed? But those are the rules. You know, that's what they sign up for. They everybody knows that. You know, although you're probably not thinking about it, but you know that at the end of your long jump competition, that actually every other nation, every other competitor still got that 30 minutes. That's the rules. It could work in your own favour next time. I feel desperately sorry for Jacob Fincham-Jukes, and you know, I'm sort of playing devil's advocate, but you know, the rules are there. That is the rules of the field of play, and the rules were put into practice correctly this time. So you know, I don't see how anyone can have any real complaints.
Absolutely. It's a bit like the last event at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, where we thought we'd won a medal in the 4x4, and unfortunately Jodie Williams stepped out of her lane. And she'd said they'd celebrated, but the appeal was upheld and they lost their medal. And that is the rules, unfortunately.
Yeah, and can I say one thing on that, by the way? Just that
it's your
lots
podcast.
Lots of people on social media were saying, it was still a great run, despite the fact they were disqualified. It wasn't a great run. No. They were disqualified. And I know that, you know, you were tweeting it out saying, you know, they've been disqualified. And we had people, you know, in the athletics fraternity going, it was still a great run, though. It wasn't. They were disqualified. How you can describe that as a great run? They broke the rules. Yeah. And I just find that an absolutely bizarre, astounding take on it. And maybe, you know, if we had less people thinking that was a great run when a team had been disqualified, then we might be talking about more medals in British track and field at World, Commonwealth and European Championships.
This is Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic podcast. And talking of medals, Michael, rowing.
Yeah, Great Britain topped the medal table at the European Championships with 10 medals in total. GB and Northern Ireland are back. The Olympic and Paralympic squads won 4 golds, 2 silvers and a bronze on the opening day of finals. The men's 8, men's and women's 4 were all victorious, while the women's quadruple sculls became the first British crew to win gold in more than 10 years. 2 further golds and a silver were won on the last day, including the Para Mix 4, including the Cox Erin Kennedy, who was diagnosed with breast cancer a few months ago and will now be taking a break from the team as she continues her treatment over the coming months. We wish her all the best. Imogen Grant and Emily Craig won the lightweight women's double sculls too. It was a good regatta for Great Britain and the rowing team.
And coming up, Season 3 of Great British Bosses from Anything But Footy resumes in September with some big guests from behind the scenes of British sport. And we do talk rowing, and it is well worth tuning in for. Canoeing, swimming, cycling, parasport, Channel 4, we've got the lot. Make sure you follow Anything But Footy for when they drop. Now, 3 sports we saw in Birmingham, Michael, went straight into it again in Munich. In the gymnastics, though, the Gadarova twins were back for Great Britain as the women's team won silver behind Italy, and Commonwealth gold medalist Alice Kinsella won all-round silver, while Jessica Gadarova was in tears after retaining her European floor title that she won in Basel in 2021. There were some injuries and some hobbling going on with many of the gymnasts, not just the Brits, but others as well. We hope they rest and recuperate well ahead of the World Championships in Liverpool at the end of October.
Do you know what I love about the Gadarova twins is when you interview them, they finish each other's sentences. You don't really actually need to throw a question at them. You can just sort of say hi, and they just go. And the two of them, and they just give you everything you need without any prompting. And they're absolutely brilliant. And as you say, Liverpool's going to be a big date towards the end of the year. It's going to be a big event, that World Gymnastics. And I think for all the gymnasts that we've seen over recent weeks in the Europeans and the Commonwealths, I think there's just a little bit of rehabbing and prehabbing and conditioning that needs to be done over the next few months. Let's talk aquatics and the European Swimming Championships, as we've already mentioned, taking place at the same time, but in Rome rather than Munich. The pool looks amazing, by the way. It does. Another busy schedule for the likes of Olympic champion Tom Dean. But apart from James Wilby in the 200 metres breaststroke, and then a brilliant history-making swim for world champion Ben Proud, to win the European 50 metres splash and dash, as well as the Commonwealths, of course. Overall, not many European champions individually. I mean, take nothing away from Ben Proud, his achievements this year. He's basically the fastest swimmer on the planet. The British relays showing their strength again with Dean, Freya Colbert, Matthew Anderson, Freya Anderson retaining their 200 metre freestyle title ahead of France, who had won the mixed 100 metres relay. The GB women also won their 100 metres relay again. And now someone who wasn't at the Commonwealths, who could be the next Michael Phelps in world terms, 17-year-old Romania's David Popovici broke the 100 metre freestyle world record and also the 200 metres free too. Quick word just about British relay swimming. I think they are targeting the relays. We saw that in Tokyo, where we saw swimmers pulling out of individual events to target relays. It's certainly, I think, in that world that we know in elite sport now, where they look at all the data and the analysis. They clearly know that the strength and depth in British swimming at the moment is such that relay medals are very much up for grabs. And I think some of the swimmers, and we saw that in Rome and we saw it in Tokyo, some of the swimmers are giving up their individual swims, if you like, to be part of a relay team who are winning medals. And it's a practice that's working.
But just to say on that, you also want your Olympic champions like your Tom Deans or Duncan Scotts, who are individual champions, Adam Peaty, and it's the same for Ben Proud. He is absolutely flying at the moment, and I'm so pleased for him because, as you said, he's such a lovely guy. You spoke to him at the Commonwealth Games, and he just is so determined after having a couple of years where he just didn't enjoy himself after Tokyo and after Rio as well, I think. But he's come back and he's absolutely flown through these championships. As you say, a world title, a Commonwealth title, a European title. It's unheard of for a British swimmer to do that. But until he wins an Olympic individual gold medal, it's not going to be that easy for him to be recognised in this country. He is one of our best sportsmen, undoubtedly, in this country. But until... And you can hold your hands up and say, this is the reason why we do the podcast, is we want to talk about these guys to get people to know them before the Olympics. But if they don't win the Olympics, and maybe some of the individual events in the Olympics, it makes it slightly harder for them moving forward.
Yeah, in diving, gold for Commonwealth medalist Lois Tolson and Kyle Kataru. Lois Tolson came up to me in Birmingham at the Commonwealth Games and went, "I recognise you now," which was slightly worrying. I don't know why. It was only their second competition together in the mixed 10-metre synchro final. And Andrea Spendolini-Siriex may be the next star of the diving world. She's just 17 years of age, European and Commonwealth champion this summer in the 10-metre platform.
And she's got a famous dad as well. And there were silvers.
Dad's got a famous daughter, is what I would be saying now.
I think you're right. And there were silvers for Jack Carlin, Jess Roberts and Pfeiffer George in the sprint, scratch and elimination finals back in Munich. We're talking cycling, of course. The men's team pursuit and sprint also won bronze, while Olympic silver medalists, the women's team pursuit, without the likes of Dame Laura Kenny and Katie Archibald, missed out on a medal entirely. Kieran Riley won silver in the men's BMX freestyle, pipped by France after our friend Declan Brooks was injured. We wish him well. That's what I mean. There are some injuries that are ongoing with the amount of sport that these guys are doing. And Olympic champion Charlotte Worthington also missed out. So, Michael, just to round up our chat on the Europeans, a championship too far? I think maybe for some sports, obviously not rowing, but some of the sports, is championship too far?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was always going to be a reset year after 2 years of pandemic and COVID and everything else. So I don't think we're going to see it again. I hope we don't see it again, because if we do, it means we've probably gone through another global crisis along similar lines to the one that we're still involved with at the moment. I think obviously the athletes will look back and go, this is just what we had to do this year. It's what we needed to do just to get our sports and the sporting calendar back on track. It's probably not been brilliant mentally and physically, as I said earlier, for a lot of the athletes. I think probably for some spectators, they've probably got to this point of the summer now. As you said, you've had a Winter Olympics and Paralympics this year. Then you've had World Athletics Championships, a Commonwealth Games, now these multi-event European Championships. There's been a lot to consume and a lot to take in. And I think for the casual fan, my mum, for example, I think it's probably just been a little bit difficult to get massively invested in all of it. The whole reason why we love an Olympic Games is it comes around once every 4 years, whether that's a summer or winter games, and that's what makes it special. To have so much in such a short space of time, I think, detracted a little bit from that. But it was something we needed to do. We've all had to do things differently. We've all had to learn to do different things. We've all had to make sacrifices with what's gone on in the world over the last 2.5 years. And this is sport, having its own reset moment.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what as well, talking of the Olympics, I have noticed at these European Championships how France are really coming through in events where you don't normally talk about France. So triathlon and cycling, I've really noticed how they are getting into the medals. Is there something like Paris 2024 coming along or something?
My highlight of Paris 2024, I'll tell you what it is already.
Go on.
And it's not even happened yet. It's the mixed team triathlon, where Team GB will pip the French on home soil. With a team that I couldn't guess yet what the GB team will be, because there's so many great triathletes that will be in contention for those places. I'd imagine Alex Yee would be involved, and probably Georgia Taylor-Brown, but who knows what the Team GB triathletes will be. But they will pip the French in Paris at the Olympics, and that will be my highlight of the Games.
We're going to make a note of that. Thursday the 18th of August 2022. This is Anything But Footy, still to come. Our latest non-footy sports news. And what's next for Birmingham?
And we're also wondering what's next for Eve Muirhead, who's announced her retirement from curling as Olympic, World and European champion. I'll tell you what she has been doing, which I was listening to. She's been commentating on golf on the radio. She was part of the BBC coverage at the Open, which seemed like a bit of a left field choice. But, I listened to quite a lot of what she's doing. So maybe broadcasting, and not just broadcasting on curling, is the future for Eve Eve Muirhead in curling. With the Milan 2026 cycle about to start in earnest, the skip of the Team GB women's curling team, who grabbed gold on the final weekend of the Games earlier this year, that was Britain's only gold of the Games, revealed she wanted to finish on a high and at the top. Well, she did. The four-time Olympian, who, remember, also helped to carry the flag into the stadium in Beijing, said, "It's been the hardest decision of my life, and I took plenty of time to make it." We'll see you on a fairway or, a curling rink soon, I'm sure, Eve.
Yeah, or a mix zone or a bench where we all sit and wait for interviews. Now, we started this as our Brums the Word season. Will continue for anything but footy, I think. In other non-footy news from the Games, Mallory Franklin added World Championship bronze to her Olympic silver from a year ago in the women's C1 final at the Canoe Slalom World Championships at the historic Augsburg Olympic course in Germany. Earlier in the week, Franklin, Kimberly Woods and Sophie Ogilvie also won bronze in the C1 team event, while the men's K1 team, that's kayaking of course, Bradley, Forbes, Cryans, Joe Clark and Chris Bowers secured a superb silver, and that's the first time since 2018 that the men's team have been on the podium in that event.
UK Athletics has confirmed world-class track and field will return to the London Stadium for the first time in 4 years for the London Diamond League next July. The world's best athletes and para-athletes will be in action on Sunday, the 23rd of July, 2023. Organisers are promising that it will be bigger and better than before, and importantly, there will be a 4-day festival of athletics set to engage the local community as well in Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. Tickets are now available.
It has been confirmed, as we mentioned earlier, the Commonwealth and European Championship star Ailish McColgan will continue her build-up to her first London Marathon in October by competing in the Big Half on Sunday, September 4th, around the streets of the capital city. The full TCS Marathon takes place a month later, on Sunday, October 2nd, before reverting back to April next year. Now, also in the Big Half, Jake Smith and Andy Butchart will join Samo Farah in the elite men's race, and David Weir will be racing on the 10th anniversary of his Paralympic success in London, where, of course, he won 4 Paralympic gold medals.
They've done it at Twickenham Stoop. Now it could be the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. England Hockey, along with Hockey Wales, have revealed further information on how they would host the Hockey Men's World Cup in 2026, with a decision expected in November. The finals weekend could be held at the iconic 62,850-seat Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. That would be immense, especially if they could fill it as well. And England women's Commonwealth champions are right back in action, looking to book a place in the Euro Hockey Championships next year. They face Croatia, Slovakia and Wales over 3 days at Durham University from Thursday, August the 25th. The same 18-strong squad that won gold in Birmingham have, understandably, been selected again.
And talking of Brum, we couldn't finish this podcast without reflecting on those Commonwealth Games. The Commonwealth Games Federation described it as the curtain came down earlier this month as a Games unlike we've seen before. More medals to women than men, largest integration of parasport, 43 nations winning medals, 9 winning their first ever medals. And for the city of Birmingham, 40,000 jobs and volunteering opportunities have been created, £38 million of investment to help those who need the most support to get physically active is in place as well. And hopes of more elite sport to come to the second city in the future as well. Michael, of course, has been campaigning for the Olympics. Well, he has also been chatting with Ami Agbezi, the 2018 England netball gold medalist, and for this, more importantly, the 2022 board member.
People were wondering, could Birmingham put on a show? And actually they've been answered, because it's been wonderful. The crowds have been amazing. There's a buzz just in the city when you walk around. People have been so friendly. And I think for me as an athlete, previously at Games, you're so focused on your sport, you don't know what's going on. And so it's been nice to be on the other side in my home city to see what incredible things are happening and the response that it's been given.
What is the place for the Commonwealth Games on the sporting calendar with everything else that happens, Europeans, Worlds, Olympics, Paralympics? What is the point of the Commonwealth Games?
So I think it definitely has a point. It's a multi-sport event where you get to interact with other sports, not just your own same sport. And it gives a platform to a lot of, I guess, home nations. So in GB, you compete as one. at the Commonwealth Games, Wales are representing Scotland, and I know that people who represent those countries are really, really passionate and actually grateful for the opportunity to represent their specific country. But also there's 72 nations and territories, and it gives those 72 nations and territories opportunity to represent their country. I think the integration with parasport as well just means that it's just a celebration of sport, and we've had difficult parts then come together through the Commonwealth, but actually it's just a celebration that we are together now, and sport is an incredible thing, and so we're just using that as a platform to compete, to be friendly, and to basically, hopefully, move forward together.
And there is a real buzz around at the moment about another UK bid for an Olympic Games and a Paralympic Games. Could Birmingham step up? Could Birmingham host the greatest show on earth, as they call it?
I think Birmingham's showed that they're ready now. A lot of people doubted or weren't sure, and actually now how successful the games have been, the ticket sales have been incredible, over 1.4 million tickets sold. And so actually I think we're ready for anything, whatever you want to throw at us. I think Birmingham are ready to host it. It's been a massive collaboration with the council, with the West Midlands, Andy Street, the Mayor of the West Midlands. Everybody's been basically supportive and trying to make these games happen, and so far they've been a success. The response is that everybody's loving it, and so I think if it's the Olympics, if it's Eurovision, whatever it is, Birmingham is ready to take it on.
It is a step up though, isn't it, the Olympic Games? But you think that the people here, the stakeholders here, could come together and potentially form part of that next bid?
Yeah, it is definitely a step up, but I think we've embraced the Commonwealth Games and we've had the practice now. So typically Birmingham hasn't really been known for very much, and people were concerned whether we'd be able to put on a good show. And actually, I think we've surpassed people's expectations, and so I think we're ready to step up to the next level.
Amar Agbasi also campaigning for a Birmingham Olympic bid there.
I thought it was just you.
Well, no, it's Amar and I at the moment. I think we're leading the charge, and it's interesting that they're looking Germany now as we record are talking seriously about possibly going for an Olympics again, having last held it the Summer Games in 1972, of course, in Munich, and now hosting the European Championships. They are looking at an Olympic bid. They haven't had a great track record in putting forward Olympic bids. I think they've been 6 or 7 that haven't really got off the starting blocks for Germany. Winter and Summer Games because, of local protests and local opposition for various reasons. One, there's no kind of taxable benefits for the country because the IOC won't pay tax in the country that a Games is held in on their profits. Right. That's an issue in Germany. I think, obviously, sustainability and environmental concerns have been raised in Germany, plus just the cost and the disruption of hosting an Olympic Games. But it seems to me there is an appetite again for a German bid. A tongue-in-cheek appetite for Birmingham to go for it. Before Birmingham, I'd just say this. I would have said that would probably be the last Commonwealth Games of its type. One like that held predominantly in one city in, fairly, close geographical terms. I know we had the track cycling in London, but, I thought before Birmingham, I couldn't see a city stepping up in the same way. And certainly, the next games in Victoria in 2026 are going to be much more of a regional games. There'll be a lot longer distances to travel. But now, having been in Birmingham and seen the success, I do wonder whether some other Commonwealth cities might now look at what they did in Birmingham and think, actually, no, they could do it. And I think New Zealand, Canada, those types of countries, the cities in those countries, should now be looking at stepping up. It's flip-flop between, the UK and Australia, as we know. I certainly think for the Centenary Games in 2030, it would make sense to go back to Canada. Could New Zealand go again? We've seen, obviously, Kuala Lumpur host, Delhi hosted a troubled Games. But, has Birmingham just put the Commonwealth Games on the map again a little bit? I think so. But, memories are short.
Indeed, and they move on swiftly, and there are World Championships to come over the next few weeks, including rowing and gymnastics that we mentioned as well. And of course, we'll keep you bang up to date here on Anything But Footy. As ever, you can get in touch, Anything But F on Twitter. You can message us on Insta. We still need to do TikTok, Michael. We're going to have to add that to my job list over the next few weeks. And check out our brand spanking new website as well, anythingbutfooty.com. Michael, thank you. It's been a pleasure this summer. Enjoy a few days of relaxation and maybe the odd beer.
Yeah, maybe the odd beer. I'm off to go and nobble the French triathlon team ahead of Paris 2024.
Social Podcast Network.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.